The plan wasn't meant for me to overhear, but as I passed the half-open dining room door, their voices spilled into the hallway. My name, the Christmas program, the laughter, a surprise skit, a joke costume, a line about oil stains. They delivered it like a rehearsed performance, each beat sharper than the last. I froze, holding the gift I'd wrapped for them, feeling the warmth of the lights against my skin and the cold tile beneath my boots. Hours later, my mom called, her voice trembling. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. By then, the real surprise was already on its way. When I think about how this all started, it never truly begins with Christmas. It starts years earlier in the Reed House in Plano, where everything looked perfect. Symmetrical frames, polished floors, soft gold lighting. But nothing ever landed gently. I was 18 the day I told my family I wanted to study automotive engineering. I remember the smell of dinner in the kitchen. Something buttery, something warm. My father, Daniel Reed, owner of a chain of upscale furniture stores, was setting the table. When I spoke, he dropped a metal serving spoon. The clang echoed louder than it should have. My mother, Marlene, the woman who orchestrated charity galas and kept the family's image spotless, blinked slowly, like she needed time to process. My older brother, Aaron, a medical resident and the family benchmark, lowered his eyes, hiding a smirk. My younger sister, Belle, a part-time dental hygienist and lifestyle influencer, laughed outright. A short, sharp sound. The spoon wobbled on the tile. I bent down to pick it up, my fingers brushing the cool metal, leaving a faint smear of oil from the spark plug I'd been working on earlier. No one spoke, but the silence said everything. That's not what our family does. After that, the pattern settled in like weather. Marlene would slide job listings across the counter. Office assistant, receptionist. Never meeting my eyes as she said, this would be more stable. She gestured toward my hands, the faint grease stains that never fully came off, especially around people. Aaron, whenever he came home, would pat my shoulder with the practiced sympathy of a doctor. Just be careful with all that physical work, he'd say, as if one mistake would prove his point. Belle recorded her videos in the living room, the ring light casting a halo on her hair as she spoke about balance and elegance. When I passed behind the camera, she'd wrinkle her nose for her audience. An inside joke no one was supposed to get. "Oil fumes again," she'd laugh. Her viewers would spam laughing emojis in the comments. I stayed quiet because that was the role I'd learned to play. My silence kept the house smooth and their image intact. Every time there was a gathering, cousins, church members, neighbors, I walked slower, kept my voice soft, and made sure my boots didn't click against the floor. Quiet was safer. Quiet kept me from being pulled aside later for tone, posture, or presentation. The memory that lingers is small. Me, standing at the sink, washing dishes, steam curling around my hands. Behind me, my family laughed at a joke I wasn't part of. I looked down at the water running over the oil-stained crescent near my thumbnail. That was when I learned what I was allowed to be in this house, and what I wasn't. That evening, I arrived at my parents' house early, carrying a small, neatly wrapped box, chosen after a long shift at the garage. The lights inside glowed warmly against the winter dusk, the kind of glow that made the Reed house look inviting from the street, even when it wasn't. I stepped inside quietly. My mother, Marlene, was somewhere deeper in the house, rehearsing the Christmas program she coordinated for the church. My father, Daniel's voice, drifted down the hallway, steady and practiced. I followed the sound, passing framed photos where Aaron, the older brother, always posed as the family's model, and Belle, the younger sister, who curated her life online, always caught the best lighting. When I reached the dining room, I noticed the door wasn't fully shut. A narrow strip of golden light cut across the dark hallway floor. I hadn't meant to stop, but then I heard my name. "Peyton," Marlene said, as if testing it in jest. Laughter followed, then Daniel's voice, low and clear. "She'll wear the jumpsuit, right? The blue one. It fits the theme." Aaron chuckled, that same soft, polite laugh he reserved for patience. "The toy car will get a reaction," Belle added. "And the line about oil stains. Perfect. The church will love it." There was a rustle of paper, someone rehearsing a script, another adjusting the timing. It took me a moment to realize what they were doing. A skit. A Christmas skit about me, my job, the grease under my nails. Then Daniel delivered it like the punchline of a long-prepared joke. We'll read the will afterward. It'll land better that way. The box in my hands felt suddenly heavier. The wrapping paper bent under my grip. The hallway grew colder than the night outside. No one inside the room paused. No one noticed me standing there. I backed away slowly, keeping my boots silent on the tile, the box held tightly against my chest. By the time I stepped outside, the truth was sharp and clean. I had overheard my family's plan to humiliate me at Christmas. The cold hit first when I stepped outside. Not the biting kind, but a dull, heavy chill that sank through layers. I lingered on the porch for a moment, holding the box I'd brought for them, the wrapping slightly crushed from how tightly I'd gripped it. Inside, laughter continued, muffled now but still bright, still rehearsed. I set the box on the wooden bench by the door, brushed my thumb along one corner, and walked toward my truck. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just drove. Neighborhood lights blurred as I steered toward the highway. My phone buzzed twice, probably texts from Mom's event group, but I ignored them. The only place open at this hour that felt neutral was a 24/7 gas station off the main road. Neon lights buzzed harshly. The pavement glistened with a thin layer of frost. I pulled into a corner spot, cut the engine, and let the quiet settle. My hands rested on the steering wheel for a long moment. The faint scent of motor oil rose from the microfiber cloth tucked in my jacket pocket. A cloth that had accompanied me through years of garage shifts, late-night emergency calls, long drives home. For the first time, I was grateful for its smell. It grounded me. I reached for my phone and called Noor Patel, my closest friend and CPA. Noor had been with me since I opened the garage at 21. She knew my family's patterns and understood the silence I'd carried into adulthood. When she answered, her voice was steady as always. "You okay?" she asked. I didn't respond to that. Instead, I said, "Can you check the lease folder for the LLC?" My voice surprised me. Flat, calm, almost businesslike. There was a pause as Noor clicked through her files. I watched the neon reflect on the wet pavement. "Okay," she said. "Got it. Why?" "Just open it." I heard her scrolling, stopping, then scrolling again. "Peyton, are you sitting down? You're in your truck. You need to see this. Right now." I opened the folder on my own phone, something I rarely did after hours. The document list appeared. Payments, lease agreements, notices, ownership forms. My stomach tightened. I clicked on the lease for the commercial property in Plano. The property housing my father's flagship furniture showroom, the one he bragged about every Christmas, Thanksgiving, and fundraiser. The pride of Daniel Reed. The tenant name blinked back at me. His LLC, the landlord name, blinked back too. Mine, not my personal name. My real estate LLC. The account Noor helped me open when I was 25. The one I'd used to buy small industrial lots around Dallas. I knew the properties were mine. Of course I did. But I'd never felt the connection. Not until now. I scrolled further. Payment records. 3 missed installments. A pending market rent increase. Substantial. A clause about non-renewal I'd highlighted months earlier, back when Nora warned me the market was shifting. At the time, it felt like standard diligence. Now it hit differently. "They're using your property," Noor said quietly. "And they're behind." I leaned back in the seat. Neon buzzed overhead, steady and cold. For a long moment, I didn't speak. I let the details sink in. Not like a revelation, more like an unavoidable truth finally surfacing. "What do you want to do?" Noor asked. I stared at the lease. At the rent notes Noor had written in the margins months ago. At the notices I hadn't sent. At the folder of templated documents waiting for completion. The answer came easier than I expected. Everything by the book. "Okay," she said, already shifting into work mode. "Then let's start." I placed my phone on the dashboard mount and opened the laptop I kept in the back for late-night work. Its screen cast a pale glow across the truck interior, illuminating tiny scratches on the wheel, dust on my boots, faint oil stains under my nails. Nur guided me step by step. I opened spreadsheets, reviewed payments, calculated overdue amounts, cross-checked lease clauses, prepared a notice of default, drafted a non-renewal notice, updated the market rate using the latest comps, linked ownership verification documents, and composed the cover letter for courier delivery. Every step carried weight. Not emotional, but precise, clean, controlled. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. At one point, Nor said, if they planned a Christmas lesson, this is your gift in return. I didn't laugh, didn't even smile. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. It's not a gift, I said. It's a line. She got it. When the packet was ready. Signed, time-stamped, uploaded. I sat for a full minute. The station was nearly empty. A distant truck hummed past. A vending machine rattled behind me. I pressed send to courier. The confirmation pinged softly. I closed the laptop, wiped my hands on the cloth in my pocket, and looked out at the dark highway ahead. This time I said into the quiet, I won't fix what they've broken. Christmas Eve at the church always looked the same. Soft lights, poinsettias along the stage. The camera crew setting up as if the Reed family were part of the program itself. My mother, Marlene, was in her element here. She moved through the hall, straightening garlands, nodding at volunteers, fine-tuning what she liked to call the atmosphere of generosity. I wasn't there, but at first, my absence barely registered. Inside the banquet room, the earliest relatives were arriving and finding their seats. My father, Daniel, rehearsed quietly for his short speech. Aaron, my older brother, posed like a trophy, adjusting his tie in the reflection of a mirrored pillar. Belle, always angling for the perfect shot, checked her phone's front camera every few minutes, smoothing her hair between attempts. At 6:47 p.m., the courier arrived. He made his way down the decorated hallway, past the child choir practicing carols, carrying a neat stack of envelopes. White, official, pristine. He asked for Marlene Reed by name. She smiled, assuming they were last-minute donations or RSVPs. When she opened the first envelope, her expression shifted sharply. Confusion first, then a precise, flickering shock, like a light bulb about to burn out. The document slid neatly onto the table beneath the bright lights. Notice of default, notice of non-renewal, revised market rent, payment ledgers, ownership records listing landlord Peyton Reed. Her hand shook. Paper rustled as she flipped through the pages too quickly. Daniel stepped closer. What is that? Marlene didn't answer. Aaron grabbed one of the sheets to read, jaw tightening. Mom, this is the showroom lease. Belle leaned over his shoulder, eyes widening. Wait, Peyton owns the building. The pastor, standing quietly at the doorway, stopped giving directions to the camera crew. Someone dimmed the stage lights. Even the murmur of the children's choir seemed to fade. One of my aunts whispered, why would Peyton send this tonight? Marlene's voice returned, thin and unsteady. No, this has to be a mistake. She doesn't. But the bottom of the ownership record still read the same name, Peyton Reed. Not her mechanic daughter, not her silent daughter, not her invisible daughter. The one she tried to turn into a seasonal joke. At 7:02 p.m., Daniel tried calling me. When I didn't answer, Marlene grabbed her phone, her earrings swinging with the force of her motion. She stepped out of the banquet room, pressing the phone hard to her ear. The first call went to voicemail, the second as well. On the third, I picked up. I was outside the cabin in Colorado, snow drifting across the porch. I heard her breath before her voice. Ragged, thin, frantic. Later that night, I would remember her words exactly. Mom called furious. Where are you? She demanded. Behind her, I could hear chairs scraping, relatives murmuring, and the faint edge of someone crying. She wasn't asking out of concern. She was asking because her flawless facade had fractured, and she needed me to help patch it before anyone else noticed. Snow clung to the railing as I watched flakes settle on my gloves. Nur was inside, chopping vegetables and humming softly. The cabin was warm, but the cold air outside felt sharp and clean. I didn't answer her question. Instead, I spoke slowly, deliberately. Did you enjoy my gift? The silence on her end wasn't theatrical. It was worse. Small, stunned, folding inward. A silence that perhaps, for the first time, realized I had stopped orbiting around them. Peyton. She tried again, softer now, almost pleading, but the wind shifted, scattering her voice into static. I won't discuss this tonight, I said. All communication can go through the LLC inbox. Her breath hitched. You can't. I already did, I replied. I let the silence linger, not as punishment, but as distance finally measured. Then I ended the call. The snow continued to fall. The phone remained motionless in my hand. Inside, Noor added another log to the fire, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing tugging me back toward Plano. The morning after Christmas, the cabin was quiet in a way the Reed house never had been. No stage sets, no curated lighting, no soft, rehearsed laughter seeping through the doors. Just wind threading through the pines and the gentle crackle of the fireplace. Noor had started the fire before sunrise. I sat on the small porch, mug warming my hands. Overnight, the snow had fallen heavily, covering the steps in an unbroken sheet of white. My boots left the first marks as I stepped out, each print pressing cleanly into the surface. Inside, Noor moved through the kitchen, her presence calm, steady and unobtrusive.